Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 224th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We are holding by Parshas Behaloscha. Parsha speaks about the menorah, everything about the menorah. Talks about the Paschal offering in the wilderness, people that were tamei, they were impure, they couldn't bring the sacrifice. Talks about divine signs of the Israelites' travels. Talks about the order of breaking camp. Talked about the trumpets, a lot of interesting things here the Torah speaks about. And the Torah tells me, towards the end of chapter 8, Torah tells me about how long the Levite's going to work for. Torah tells me, chapter 8, verse, 23 to 25, it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, that's verse 23. Verse 24, this shall apply to the Levites, 25 years of age and up. He shall join the legion of the service of the tent of meeting. In verse 25, our verse, and that is, from 50 years of age, he shall withdraw from the legion of work and no longer work. So we see that the Levites are going to work pretty much until the age of 50. So, comes along Rashi. And Rashi says, what's he going to stop working? What is he not going to do? And Rashi says he's not going to, carry this on his shoulders. Right? And he's not going to carry the ark or other things. And he's going to, what's he going to do over here? He's going to return and shut the gates. Right? He's going to keep the gates closed. So, says Marva Rebbe, Harav Agon or Moshe Torah this should be well. He says in Tam V'das, commentary on Chumash, and he says it's a wonder. It's a wonder in Rashi over here. That he's talking about closing the doors, not opening it. Maybe they're going to have an obligation to open the doors, right? Line of work, not closing the doors, whatever. Right? So the whole question over here, why he's talking about closing the doors? Why not opening the doors? We're talking about where the Levite's not going to work, right? He's going to sort of be put out to pasture by the age of 50. So, Rebbe here says, we can explain Rashi according to what the Chofetz Chaim said. What did the Chofetz Chaim say? Chofetz Chaim, of blessed memory, said, anyone who reaches the age of 50, right, what happens when he reaches the age of 50? Your desires in this world become less. They should become less. Why? Because you can't do the same things you used to do. The body gets weaker, essentially. You can't eat as much. There are a lot of things you can't do the same. So he says you have to start at some point to preparing yourself for the next one. That's what the rabbis tell us, that the person, when he hits 50, he's going to go and start closing the gates. What does closing the gates mean? It means he's going to stop his work. Right? Meaning that his life in this world is almost over. Right? He's got to start preparing for the next world. Right? The Rebbe asks why he's talking about closing of the gates and not opening. So he's telling you as a hint over here. Closing the gates means the end of a person's life. Right? That essentially is what it means. And a person at a certain age, he's telling you at the age of 50, according to the Chofetz Chaim, at the age of 50, he's going to start preparing for the next one. So King David says in Psalms, what does King David tell us? If a person, what's the average lifespan of a person? 70 years. If he has strength, he gets 80 years. No one knows how long they're going to be here for. But the average is about the age of 70. Right? That's what a person's allotted. Sometimes people die before, after, but certainly by the age of 80, that's only if he has strength. Right? It's all downhill. Person gets sick more often. Bones start to atrophy. Again, you have to keep yourself in shape. You have to exercise, eat right. But all things being equal, you start getting, you can't do the same things. I remember someone told me when then they were early 80s, they said, yeah, I wish I was 60. I wish I was back in my 60s. They had more strength. They had more vitality. They get around easier. But it's interesting. The Chofetz Chaim here says by the age of 50. Now, by the age of 50, person should already realize you can't do the same things. Right? You can't do the same things they used to do. Right? A person gets sick. Takes them longer to heal. You can't eat as much. You don't have as much strength. Right? A lot of things. I remember someone telling me, in the secular world, if a person wants to travel, depending on the age, they said if you're in the 60s, it's go-go. That you should go. If you're in your 70s, it's slow go. If you're in your 80s, it's no-go. All right, you just don't know. So that's a secular mentality. But we're already thinking even before 60. Right? Even when you're 50, we should start thinking about the next world. So I remember many years ago, more than 25 years ago, when I met my Rebbe, should be well, and he was already in the late 60s, early 70s, and he told me, I don't live in this world. That was a little bit strange. So I was like, say what? Like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm already old. I'm already preparing for the next world. So the first thing I thought of when he said that was, who in the world talks like that? Who thinks like that? Right? We think of that song, Fame, I'm gonna live forever. Right? We think we're gonna live forever. Everybody knows that's not true. Everybody knows the older they get, the closer they are to the grave. The only thing is, people don't live their lives that way. I remember many years ago, I saw, not that I was looking or trying to stare, I saw two women walk by, and these were older women. How do I know they're older women? Well, you can see from their face, tremendous wrinkles. Right? Being in their 60s at least. And this woman, let's just say they weren't religious. One woman had spiked red hair. Go figure. I don't think that was original color. But okay. But what struck me, again, not that I was staring over here, but I noticed at least one of them was wearing a miniskirt. Someone in her 60s, 70s. You're going to say, well, let her wear what she wants. Okay, what's she going to do? Wear fishnet stockings and stilettos? Right? Punked hair? 65 years old. 70 years old. Right? She got 2 feet in the grave already. Or potentially. People want to hold on to youth. Right? As much as possible. That's why you see some people get, plastic surgery after plastic surgery to look younger. So, people don't think they're going to die. Or they don't want to believe they are going to die. So what do they want to do? They want to, stay vitally young. Right? As much as possible. You definitely see that by athletes. They can't do the same thing once they hit 30. In their early 30s. Right? By that time, they're pretty much washed up. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll play till their mid-30s. Something like that. But even if you're older, right, you still want to have that same vitality, just the body doesn't cooperate. Now they got drugs where they can try and change the body a little bit. Make it cooperate in a certain way. But it does other damage, potentially other damage as well. So, a person has to take stock of their life. There's an obligation on a regular basis to take what we call cheshbon nefesh. Think about what I do. Right? Much easier to repent by Yom Kippur to know what you have to work on. Right? You take stock every day before you go to sleep. What did you want to accomplish during the day? What did you succeed at? What did you fail at? Etc. When you hit a certain point in life, a person has to realize they are going to die. Now, death is not really a Jewish concept. Had Adam and Eve not eaten from the tree, they wouldn't have been death. But okay, right? They did. And because they did, they changed life. They brought death to the world. So we have to take stock when we're younger, when we're older, and we have to realize every day that we're alive, we're really closer to being in the grave. Because the body ages. I don't think this is rocket science. Might be science 101. Right? The older a person gets, we know you can't do the same things. Right? You become weaker generally. It's harder to fight off disease. Takes longer. Even if the body is healthy. Right? There's a number of things you can't do when you're older than when you're younger. Again, there's an obligation to stay fit. An obligation to exercise. That's all true. But at a certain point, a person has to realize, I'm not going to be here forever. And we learn this out. The Chofetz Chaim says from the Levim that they're put out to pasture, that they're not going to work after the age of 50. Now, someone may ask, very practical question, how many people are really thinking about this? If a person got sick, or let's say, God forbid, a person got a dreaded disease, they know their time is limited, or even if they beat it, it could come back, maybe come back again. They'll see for sure their life is finite. Because they know they have a disease, and they're a powder keg walking. And even if the disease is in remission, it can always come back. Right? That would be the fear in the back of someone's mind. Even if they beat it, who says it's not coming back? But a person like that understands how precious life is. Person who's more sickly, right? Who has to be on an inhaler. Someone who's not healthy. Whatever the case is, they don't take life for granted. Why don't they take life for granted? Very simple. Because they see their body's fragile. They'll see their body is not as strong as everyone else. They'll see they succumb to more illness. Whether they're born that way, it comes on later, whatever it is. They have a more appreciation of life in general because of the sickness that they've gone through or continue to go through. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But you have an appreciation when it's good. Tell someone who suffers from asthma when they can breathe without an inhaler. Right? When they don't have any issues. When things are good. Different issue. Someone who takes health for granted and then they get sick. They realize what they have when they don't have it. So, the Chovos Levavos says, as he brings out in Duties of the Heart, we got to be thankful for everything we have. All right, thankful for the ability to breathe. Thankful for the ability to make a living. Right? To have a little bit of money. To have a roof over our head. To have food. To have water. To have other things. Tremendously, we have an obligation to be thankful. But the problem is we're only thankful when something goes wrong. And by all means, nothing should go wrong. Right? You're healthy. Why shouldn't you stay healthy? Why should there be a problem? I'm not saying a person got in an accident or something else. Say a person, God forbid, got a disease. Right? They got a disease. That technically really they shouldn't have gotten. We don't know how they got it. Okay. Right? But now you got to deal with it. Then a person can say, why did I get it? Someone else didn't get it. So it's all about the mentality, but shouldn't we be thankful? As close as the Bible says, for everything we have. Why is it that sometimes we're only thankful when we don't have it? That's probably many times. And the reason is very simple. The reason is it's because we take things for granted. And we shouldn't. Victor Miller of blessed memory, one of the Torah giants of the last generation, said in theory, every second of every day we should be saying Shechianu. we should be saying the Thanksgiving prayer. Why? I got an ability to breathe. So every second I can breathe. Who says the next second I'm going to be able to breathe? And the second after that. Right? Isn't it a miracle? You can say, what do you mean? That's nature. Your lungs are clean. All things being equal, you're healthy. Why shouldn't you breathe? A person could drop dead of a heart attack. Anything could happen. The issue is that life itself is a miracle. The fact that we live on a daily basis is miraculous. People say it's nature, this is what's supposed to be. All things being equal, a person shouldn't get sick only at the end of their life and this and that, but it doesn't always work out that way. Life's not always fair. A person could be sickly the whole life, could be sickly part of their life, could never be sick. Nobody knows. Ultimately, nobody knows. But the thing is, we can't take things for granted. Right? Then we become like an ingrate. We're not thankful for what we have. So we have to learn how to be thankful. We should think, at least maybe write down, every day, things I'm thankful for. Right? Top of the list, I'm able to breathe. I'm able to walk. And even if I have arthritis today, it doesn't hurt as much. Right? There are many things we're thankful for. So when we're down, maybe the chips are down, so to speak. Woe to me. Woe to the person. They have this. They have that. They have the other thing. They feel bad. But they don't look at what they have. That's why most people are sick, even if they're really sick. Right? Half the cure, half the battle is attitude. And if a person says, woe to me, never function the same, never this, never that, maybe that's true. But if you give up hope, you're as good as dead. You give up the will to fight, you may still lose the battle. Right? But mentally, your body will just go. I know someone recently who died of a stroke, affected their brain. Obviously they realized they can't do the same things that they used to do. So to them, life wasn't worth living. Okay, they were much older, true. But they decided life wasn't worth living. So what'd they do? They basically refused to eat. They ate minimally, drank minimally. And they're basically given over to hospice care. So what the person do? He basically starved to death. That's what happened. Did it to himself. But he had no will to live. I know a number of people that if they had a stroke or other things happened, when they lost the will to live, they died. Now, they might have died anyway. They very well might have died. But once you give up the will to live, it's a guarantee you'll die. Because, then the body just goes. So, we have to know what we're living for. We have to have our heads screwed on straight to understand what our purpose is. What we're doing here, even if it's hard. And many people have it hard. And the problem is people complain. Situations they're given they don't like. I understand. But some people may never get over it. And if you never get over it, you'll just live a very depressed life. And that's why most people are on Prozac today. Very simple reason. They're miserable. Right? They may have difficult lives. I'm not saying not. But even if they have difficult lives, spouse problems, kids problems, health issues, they may have all of these issues together. Life is kind of depressing. Absolutely depressing. I get it. But then what are you living for? This is bad. That's bad. The other thing is bad. Now, I'm not saying you should commit suicide. That's also pretty bad. But in the end, what does the evil inclination want? The evil inclination wants to make you more depressed. Say, look, you can't even eat the same way you used to. Imagine God's irony. Someone who loves food. And let's say they eat plenty of non-kosher food. As a Jew. They love food. What happens? They get a disease they can't eat. Right? Or they lose their taste buds. That's hell for them. Why? Because their whole life is based on food. When they're eating lunch, they're eating breakfast, where am I going for lunch? They're eating lunch, what am I doing for dinner? Now, a person may say, come on, you're making this up. So I used to go with my parents every year, for a February break. I used to go to Florida. They had a house in Florida. So I used to go for like a week and a half. 2 weeks that I had off. And people, that's what they did. It was all about food. Where they were going, where they were eating. And a lot of people spoke about the same things. Now, someone's going to say, well, you must have been around very shallow people. Maybe. Does that represent everybody? No. Is everybody that shallow? I wouldn't say that. But I'm telling you, people I saw, they were focused on food. Food, entertainment. These people are in the 40s, older. Just want to enjoy life. You're going to say, what's so bad about that? The answer is not living according to what God wants, for sure. They know they're getting older, whatever, but they want to enjoy. Want to enjoy going out to dinner, going out to lunch. Okay, these people had more money than others. Okay. They weren't struggling, so to speak. I mean, if they were, wouldn't necessarily know it, but it's all about food. Right? Food is idolatry. People can make food into idolatry. So maybe there's not a good cross-section of people, okay? But I'm saying as a kid that I was many years ago, it's what I saw. That's what people live for. So that is pretty pathetic, true. But they were just giving into their own base desires. They weren't thinking about the future. They didn't care about the future. They cared about now. I want to eat now. Someone, it came to a relative of mine, whose spouse passed away. I was there at the Shiva house, the mourner's house. Said, I remember your spouse, by food. I can't make this up. I heard it with my own ears. All the non-kosher food he ate. All these smorgasbords. I was like, I shouldn't be saying this. I'm like, you an idiot? I mean, say that. Of course you shouldn't be saying that. Why, you want to remember someone by what they ate? Not to mention the fact it was all, it wasn't kosher. And the soul of the person that died usually goes before it gets judged. The place is where it knows. Its own house, kid's house, whatever. Imagine that soul hears that, which they probably did. Probably wish to die 10 times over. They see absolute clarity. They know God runs the world. This is the praise. This is the praise someone comes and says, you ate all this non-kosher food. One thing, give a lot of charity, help people, this, that. Something really to be remembered for. You can pass down to your kids, grandkids, whatever. That's how the person's going to be remembered. You're going to remember because of food? So again, someone will say, well, that's not normal. That's not a good cross-section of the world. Maybe it's not. But how are people remembered? We are remembered by what we do in this world. Can't put that on a gravestone. Right? We're remembered by what we do. By action, not by thought. So, what does the person want to be remembered by? They want to be remembered by the good deeds they did. Do they want to remember they helped others in time of need? They listened when people had issues. Any number of things. Or does someone want to be remembered that they traveled across the country of America and watched the baseball game in every stadium? Someone told me many years ago that was their goal. They want to go to every single stadium. I don't know if it's the same goal today. But I know someone, told me that, that's something they would like to do. That, you want to be remembered for that? What are we living for? Right? So a person like this and others don't think they're going to have to answer to anyone. They think when they die, and hopefully they're right for their own sake, that they're only going to go 6 feet under. But we don't believe that to be true. There's a judge, there's judgment. So these people, they have no Torah. And the soul is insatiable. The soul needs spirituality. And if you don't feed it with spirituality, what are you going to feed it with? Garbage. Your mentality will be garbage. Your soul will be garbage, and you'll die. And most likely, you probably won't have a portion of the world to come. Maybe God's giving it to you now. But to seriously think about food, on a regular basis and where you're going, what you're going to see, this, that, it's fantasy. So you're going to say people can do what they want. People have opportunity. If they have the opportunity, what do you care? And the answer is that's not what a Jew should do. Not about seeing the Eiffel Tower. Not about going to LV, as it was called in the day, Las Vegas. Go to Hawaii or go to these other places. Yeah, they're beautiful places, some of them. But what's my purpose in life? Is my purpose in life to travel, if I can, at the end of my life? See the Great Barrier Reef. Something to see. World wonder. Maybe. It's going to give me appreciation of God. What's it going to do over here? We have to take stock of our lives. Right? My Rebbe here says, from the Chofetz Chaim, by the age of 50. Right? By the age of 50, we have to already be thinking, I'm not going to be here forever. But really, probably should be thinking about that before. But see, but that age, at least, we know our strength wanes. We can't do the same things. Can't eat as much as we used to. That's depressing. Not to mention, there could be tragic events. Person's life, see people die. Friends of theirs, this, that. And they get older, it's harder. Because then they see all their friends dying. I know somebody, a bunch of friends from their synagogue. There are 2 people left of these friends. I know someone had 10 close friends, 5 are left. Right? It's people in their 80s, what are they thinking about? Well, they're a ticking time bomb. They're not living for much. So what are they? So they're, are they preparing for death? No, they just don't want to die. What do we always say? The alternative is worse. Yeah, for where they're going, it is going to be worse. Heck of a lot worse. Right? But what are they living for? They're already buried and dead. They're just lacking burial. They're already pretty much in the ground. Right? That's what it means that the soul is spiritually cut off. But you see people, in other words, people should die between the age of 20 and 60 if their soul is spiritually cut off. But you see people live to their 70s, 80s, 90s. So how can their soul be spiritually cut off? Says Mori Rebbe. It means that really they're already spiritually dead now. You see how they live. They live like animals, give in to base desires. They die like animals. That's what happens. They just give in to base desires. If they give in to base desires, that's not life. I mean, they may think it's life, but it's not. Right? It's certainly not eternal life. Certainly not spirituality. Right? So the verse over here says, as my Rebbe points out, in the name of the Chofetz Chaim, the age of 50, you got to start preparing. You already got to start preparing for the next world. I would say even before that. Because your body starts to go. You can't do the same things even before that, but he's using this example that the Levites put out the pasture. That they can't work over the age of 50. So that being the case, we ourselves have to take stock of life. We have to think what it's going to be. And prepare ourselves. Because essentially, if we don't, then we're just giving into our base desires, trying to do things our body can't do. Maybe we would try to make, arrangements, so to speak, that we can try and still do the same things we did when we were younger. But it's not life. You have to act your age. Plenty of people out there dye their hair. I know someone during COVID, very old, in their 90s. Couldn't get to the beauty parlor. So now they're gray. Dyed their hair all their life. So they haven't seen gray hair in like 30 years. More. You know, there's a reality. And the reality is we have to act our age. We have to know what we're living for. We have to know where we're going. That we're going to have to answer to the one God above. And we can't think that we're going to live forever. I want to remind everyone, I have a class on duties of the heart every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We're doing that. We're in the gate of repentance, finishing up 10th chapter. I have 2 Q&As every Tuesday, Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. I have a class on the book of Leviticus, chapter 14, every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Tanakh talk every Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. Do Pirkei Avos every Saturday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. And I have conversion classes. Anyone interested in any of them, you can find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.